At our company open house, my supervisor said to a room full of clients, "She's like Wallpaper, always there, but nobody notices." I laughed politely as the blood pounded in my ears. Quietly, I reached out to his biggest client that night, and when they moved their contract over to me personally, his department collapsed like a house of cards. I've worked in client events for almost a decade now. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays the bills, and I'm damn good at it. I live in Indianapolis, and for the past several years, I worked for a mid-sized firm that handles corporate events, the kind where executives want luxury, without stress. We make them look good in front of investors and VIPs. Launch parties, big galas, retreats, whatever they need. I started out doing grunt work, schedules, follow-ups, managing vendors. Slowly, I became the person who kept everything from falling apart. I wasn't flashy. I didn't dress to stand out or make noise in meetings. I just kept things moving. No drama, no screw-ups. I handled my business and went home. My boss, Mark, noticed. But not in a good way. Mark was slick. Always in a blazer. Rolex on his wrist, hair always gelled, even during heat waves. He had this laugh that didn't match his face. He was all charm on the outside, but once you worked under him, you saw it, everything was about appearances. He wanted credit. Always. He'd jump on a client call just long enough to name drop, then vanish, and leave the real work to us. Over time, I started doing more than my title said. I basically ran the Clear State account, a huge national insurance company out of Chicago. They'd expanded into Indiana and needed big events done fast, without screw-ups. Mark managed the relationship, but I did all the heavy lifting. I scheduled their walkthroughs, negotiated with their insane list of vendors, reworked budgets, put out fires, even talked their executives down when they got too pushy. Clear State liked me. They didn't say it outright, but I could tell. They started reaching out to me directly instead of looping Mark in. One of them, Paul Withers, the VP of Strategic Partnerships, would even call me for advice on internal stuff. That's how deep I was in. Mark didn't like that. He got passive-aggressive. Started excluding me from meetings. He'd set up calls with Clear State without telling me, then make decisions he didn't understand. I'd have to clean up the mess afterward. When I pushed back, he said I needed to trust leadership more. Things got worse. He started making little comments in front of other people. "She's behind the scenes, not a people person," or "she doesn't mind the grunt work, right?" Always with a smile. Like it was harmless. But I could feel it. Then came the open house. It was a big deal. The company threw it once a year to show off our departments to clients and investors. A bunch of booths, banners, wine, tiny food. Executives walked around shaking hands. Every department set up displays. I'd worked my ass off getting ours ready. A massive timeline of our events, client testimonials, even a video loop. I stayed late for 3 nights getting it perfect. The night of the event, I was standing near the display, dressed nice, but not flashy. Mark was nearby, doing his usual fake laugh thing, leading a group of clients around. I wasn't really listening until I heard my name. Well, not my name, but close. He said, loud enough for the group to hear. "This is our client team. And this one here? She's like Wallpaper. Always there, but nobody really notices." They laughed. Not in a cruel way. Just awkward politeness. Like they weren't sure if it was a joke or not. I laughed too. Just once. Small and tight. But in that second something changed. I wasn't humiliated. I was done. I looked past Mark, and standing just behind him, sipping a drink and watching me, was Paul Withers from Clear State. Our biggest client. I gave him a polite smile. He nodded. I didn't say anything that night. Didn't call Mark out. Didn't make a scene. I went home like usual, took off my shoes, and sat down in silence. Next morning, I sent Paul an email. Just to check in. Told him I appreciated working with his team. Mentioned I was exploring some new opportunities and wanted to understand what Clear State looked for in long-term vendor relationships. He responded in less than an hour. We had a call later that afternoon. He sounded frustrated, but not with me. With the company. With the way communication had broken down. He said, word for word. I feel like we're dealing with a middleman who doesn't understand what we actually want. I asked him, carefully, what it would look like if he worked directly with someone who did. Someone outside the company.
Someone like me.
He didn't say yes right away. He said he'd think about it. But I knew. In the meantime, I reached out to a friend of mine, a lawyer, who helped me file for a small LLC. Just me, for now. Quiet. Under the radar. 3 weeks later, Paul emailed me again. He said they were ready to move. Their contract with the firm was expiring in 2 months, and they didn't plan to renew. He wanted to sign with me instead.
We met voor lunch.
Just the two of us. He brought a draft proposal his team had drawn up. I brought my laptop and a list of everything I could do better, cheaper, faster.
He signed.
That week, I turned in my resignation. No drama. No confrontation. Just a short, clean email. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm moving on to a new role effective immediately. I didn't tell them about the new LLC. I didn't say anything about ClearState. I waited. 2 weeks later, the ClearState team sent their formal termination letter to the firm. All hell broke loose. Mark called me 6 times in one day. I didn't pick up. He sent an email marked urgent, full of fake confusion like, I just wanted to touch base and clarify some things.
I didn't respond.
He tried to save face with the partners. Told them ClearState left because of budget issues. But that didn't hold up. Because ClearState told another client, who told someone else, and the truth got around fast. Mark's department was already shaky. Turns out, ClearState made up most of their revenue. Once they left, the other clients started asking questions. Within a month, 2 more pulled out. Not to come to me, they just didn't trust the firm anymore. Last I heard, Mark had been reassigned. He's still at the company, but not in charge of anything important. No more big clients. No more big speeches. Just a guy in a blazer, answering emails for smaller projects that don't make the company real money. Meanwhile, I've stayed quiet. ClearState's contract paid out more in 6 months than I made in my last full year there. And now I've got something that's mine. No more middlemen. No more wallpaper comments. Just me, doing the work, and getting the credit. After ClearState signed with me, things moved fast. I didn't even have time to enjoy it. I was too busy delivering. They had 3 major events lined up that quarter: a leadership summit, a regional awards gala, and an investor conference in downtown Chicago. I was working 12-hour days, some weekends too. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control. Every decision went through me. No one undercutting me. No backroom politics. Just honest work and honest results. By the 3rd event, ClearState was raving. I hired 2 freelancers I trusted to help with logistics. I found a small co-working space near downtown Indy, just to look more legit for local clients. Paul sent a glowing testimonial, and I put it on my website. That testimonial brought in my second client, a regional healthcare group that had heard about my work from someone on Paul's team. But then something weird happened. One night, about 6 weeks after I launched, I got a call from a blocked number. I usually let those go to voicemail, but I picked up. It was Mark. I just want to talk, he said.
I didn't say anything.
You blindsided me, he said. You know that, right? I laughed, not because it was funny. Just out of disbelief. I blindsided you. I said. You humiliated me in front of your clients. You tried to erase my work. He didn't deny it. He just sighed and said, it wasn't personal. That's how this business works. I hung up, but he wasn't done. 2 days later, one of my vendors, someone I'd worked with for years, canceled a catering agreement for my next event. No warning.
No explanation.
Just said they were going in a different direction. The same week, the AV company I'd used for years suddenly tripled their quote. When I asked what was going on, the rep got weirdly quiet and said, we're being told not to work with you. That's when I knew Mark was behind it. He still had connections. He couldn't beat me directly, so he was trying to freeze me out. Quietly. Behind the scenes. Maybe to prove a point. Maybe to force ClearState to go crawling back to the firm. I didn't panic. But I was pissed. So I started making calls. I reached out to new vendors. Smaller ones. Ones that didn't have history with the firm. I told them exactly what was happening. No lies, just the truth. Most of them jumped at the chance to help. "You're not the first person to leave that firm," one of them told me. "They treat people like dirt." I got replacements locked in. I cut costs by 15%. ClearState didn't even notice the shakeup. The event went off without a hitch. But the real twist came a week later, when I got an email from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Her name was Dana. She used to work at the firm, left 2 years before me. She was sharp, organized, but burned out. I remember she left suddenly, no goodbye party, nothing. Her email just said, "I've been watching what you're doing. I want in, but there's something you should know. Mark's doing more than trying to freeze you out. He's trying to ruin you." Attached was a PDF. A screenshot of a Slack conversation from inside the firm. Mark was bragging about calling vendors, threatening to cut ties if they worked with me. He even joked about how long it would take to crush my little LLC. That's when it stopped being business. This was war. After Dana sent me that Slack screenshot, I sat at my kitchen table and just stared at it for a full 10 minutes. There was Mark, in plain text, bragging to his little group of exec buddies about blacklisting me from his network. Saying things like, "She's biting the hand that fed her, and now she's gonna starve." Another message said, "Already told Avtech and Premier Catering they'll lose our business if they even take her calls." That's when it really hit me. This wasn't just ego or jealousy. This was personal. And he wasn't going to stop until I had nothing left. I called Dana. We hadn't spoken in almost 3 years, but the second she picked up, it was like we hadn't missed a day. "I had to warn you," she said. "I've seen him do this before. He tries to ruin anyone who walks away from him stronger." She told me he'd pulled similar stunts when she left. He'd smeared her reputation to vendors and clients. Even cost her 2 job offers by feeding lies to recruiters through back channels. "But here's the thing," she said. "You're not alone anymore." He pissed off a lot of people. That's when things started shifting. Dana put me in touch with 2 other former employees. One had worked under Mark in client services, and another had been a junior event planner who left after having a full-on panic attack in the office. Both of them still had files, emails, notes, receipts. One had saved a recording from a Zoom call where Mark said, while laughing, "Just slap her name on the timeline." Clients like to see a woman involved, but they don't care which one. Another had an internal spreadsheet showing how he quietly redistributed my ClearState bonuses into the team performance pool, which somehow always ended up boosting his year-end check. I had proof. Real, serious proof of retaliation, misconduct, and unethical behavior. And then, like fate, an opportunity landed in my lap. One of the vendors Mark had threatened, the AV company, they called me back. Turns out their rep, Kevin, didn't like being pushed around. "Look," he said, "we've done good business with you for years. I don't like being told who I can and can't work with. We're back in if you'll have us. And I've got something you might want to see." He forwarded me an email chain between him and Mark. It was worse than I thought. Mark had not only told them to freeze me out, he said I'd stolen client information illegally and hinted I was under legal review. He never outright said I was being sued, but he carefully planted the idea to scare them.
Kevin knew it was garbage.
But if he hadn't, I could have lost everything. That's when I made a decision. I was going to hit back. But not by going public. Not yet. I reached out to a lawyer. A real one this time, not just a friend. I brought her everything. The Slack messages, the vendor emails, the Zoom recording, the bonus file. She reviewed everything and said, "You've got a case. Retaliation. Defamation. Maybe even tortious interference." We started building the complaint, quietly. While that was happening, I went to work on something else. A presentation. Not for a judge. Not yet. For ClearState. I asked Paul for a 20-minute meeting. Just him and 2 of the senior execs. No pressure. Just wanted to show them how far things had gone and why I might need their help soon. I walked them through the timeline. Showed them the messages. The emails. The fake rumors. I didn't ask them to do anything. I just told the truth. When I was done, Paul looked at me and said, "What do you need from us?" I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just said, "If he comes at me harder, I need to know you won't fold, that you won't go back to them." Paul nodded. "You have our full support." But that wasn't the only surprise. 2 days later, I got another email, this one from a former junior partner at the firm who'd just left. Subject line: "I have something you're going to want to see. I'm not loyal to Mark. Never was." I clicked it open and everything changed. The email from the ex-partner had a zip file attached. Inside were internal reports, Slack exports, emails, and meeting notes. Some of it confirmed what I already knew. Mark had been lying, manipulating, bullying people out the door for years. But some of it went deeper. There was a memo, marked confidential, showing Mark had approved charging clients for hours that were never worked. They'd been double billing ClearState and 2 other accounts. He'd used the extra margin to pad the department's numbers during an internal audit. There were also HR complaints. Multiple. Some about his behavior toward women, some about racist comments made during offsites. All handled internally. All buried. That was it. I had everything. My lawyer and I finalized the legal complaint and sent a letter of intent to the firm. We weren't just suing Mark, we were filing against the company itself. Retaliation, defamation, interference with business. And we backed every accusation with receipts. But I wasn't done yet. ClearState's legal team got involved. Paul had looped them in without telling me. Turns out, they were already looking for an excuse to sever all ties to the firm after the billing irregularities. My proof gave them legal cover. They didn't just end their relationship with the firm. They went public. A press release went out the following Monday. ClearState would no longer be working with third-party event vendors found to engage in retaliation, fraud, or unethical billing practices. They didn't name the firm, but everyone in the industry knew exactly who they meant. That same week, my lawyer filed the lawsuit. It made the local business papers. The headline: "Former employee sues firm over retaliation and defamation in ClearState breakup, and here's where karma showed its teeth." One of the smaller clients who'd left the firm earlier, they sued too. After seeing my story, they checked their own invoices. Found the same billing fraud.
3 lawsuits in a week.
The partners panicked. They launched an internal review. Hired an outside auditor. The results weren't pretty. Turns out, Mark had been padding numbers for years. Reporting false productivity. Overbilling. Claiming bonuses off other people's work. The partners tried to deny it at first, said it was rogue behavior. But once the audit dropped, they had no choice. Mark was fired. Not reassigned. Not stepped down. Fired. The firm issued a quiet settlement with me. They didn't admit guilt. They never do, but the check had 6 figures. And a non-disclosure clause, which I read very carefully. It only covered them. It didn't cover me. So I talked. Not to the press. I didn't care about headlines. I talked to other women in the industry. Quiet meetings. Zoom calls. Private referrals. Within 6 months, I had more clients than I could handle. I hired Dana full-time. Then the other 2 former employees. I made them partners. Equal share. Full transparency. We built our own thing, lean, ethical, and effective. And we made a rule. No one gets erased. No one's work gets stolen. No one ever gets called wallpaper. But there's one last piece. About a year after all of this, I was invited to speak at a regional event industry panel. It was small, about 40 people, mostly independent event professionals, some vendors, a few execs. I almost said no. I hate public speaking. But something told me to go. I gave a short talk on how to build trust with clients and recover from toxic leadership. Afterward, someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was Kevin, the AV rep who stood by me. He smiled and said, "Guess who applied for a job at our company last week?" I raised an eyebrow. Mark. Full resume. Cover letter. Even dropped your name in his work history like a badge. I laughed for real then. The first real laugh I'd had about any of this. "Did you call him Wallpaper?" I asked. Kevin just smiled. Didn't need to. We never responded. So, that's it. Mark lost everything. His job, his reputation, his fake kingdom of power. The firm he ruled? Gutted. Downsized. Most of their best people left. They can't get near big clients now without questions about ethics and billing. And me? I kept my name clean. I built something better.
Stronger. Honest.
But I'll never forget that moment at the open house, when he stood there in his blazer and watch, surrounded by clients, and said I was wallpaper. Because that's the night he lit the match that burned his whole career down. And I didn't even have to raise my voice.